A teacher in America has won a $450,000 or £362,000 payout after she refused to use a trans student's pronouns and was told to resign. Vivian Gerety successfully sued the Jackson local school district, saying her First Amendment claims were violated. We are joined now by American attorney Kara Dansky. Kara, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much.
Well, absolute pleasure to have you. So is this a big story in America, this kind of victory in the courts?
Well, unfortunately, in America, we have a media that refuses to have honest conversations about these kinds of topics. So, no.
We have that here, by the way, as well.
I know you do. So I have a Substack and I have a weekly series called FFS Friday, which stands for Female Free Speech. And I profiled her in my FFS Friday series. And I'm so happy to hear that she has won her case, and I congratulate her. So
we've won some cases in the UK recently to do with very similar ideas. Do you think that that's going to have the same kind of implication legally? Because that's what we've seen in the UK, is it's through the courts that protections on free speech have actually been enabled. Does that mean now it's going to lead to some change in policy in America?
I do think that's correct. We have seen a number of cases. There's one case from the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals in which a bunch of students and parents sued, claiming that the school was mandating that students use preferred pronouns and whatnot. They prevailed before the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals. There's another case that happened in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, where a state university professor essentially made the same allegations. He prevailed before the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. So I really think the free speech aspect of the whole topic of so-called gender identity ideology is a winner for those of us who care about free speech and about material reality.
Also, it sounds like a bunch of people are winning a whole load of dosh. Sounds like there could be a good thing, become a teacher and just say, no, I'm not going to say what your pronouns are, and I'll have $500,000, thank you. But then, of course, that means that these school boards are actually going to have to do something about it. They don't want to lose that kind of money.
Right. No, that's exactly right. The school boards are going to have to implement policies that allow people to speak the truth, that refuse to compel teachers and students alike to engage in speech with which they disagree. They're absolutely going to have to do that, which relates in some ways to a recent case concerning Title IX, which I think we could talk about if you'd like, because there were some very important free speech implications.
Well, if you can explain what Title IX is, I think it is to do with the equality of sexes in schools or something. Is that right?
Yeah, so Title IX was enacted in 1972 to prohibit sex discrimination in schools.
Okay, fine. And then the Biden administration made some changes to this.
Right. So when Congress enacted Title IX in 1972, it said that the administration had the authority to enable promulgating regulations to implement it, which they did in 1975. And what President Biden did in April of 2022 was announce that those regulations were going to be completely rehauled. And one thing the rehaul was going to do was going to redefine the word sex to include so-called gender identity for all purposes under the statute. And that has now been vacated.
Okay, because, I mean, that includes self-IDing, isn't it? So you can literally have young boys say, I'm a girl, be able to go into women's only spaces and also compete in sports, right?
There are far-reaching implications. So what the administration proposed in 2022 and then finalized in 2024 was, yes, essentially self-ID. Any boy or man could call himself a girl or woman and be permitted to participate in sports and access the locker rooms and bathrooms associated with his so-called woman gender identity. But also it redefined sexual harassment under Title IX. So this is critically important for viewers of your show, which is to say that Title IX also contains some really stringent prohibitions on sexual harassment in schools and on college campuses, which is great. But one of the things that the Biden rule would have done was provide that so-called misgendering, i.e. the use of accurate sex pronouns, could constitute sexual harassment under Title IX. So that's one of the things that a court recently ruled was unconstitutional in violation of the First Amendment.
Wow, so these are gone now. Has it gone from all states, or is this from half of them, or is there more work to do, essentially, is what I'm saying, in terms of getting rid of these very, I would argue, backward laws?
So the ruling that came down on Thursday came from the Eastern District of Kentucky, and it pertained to claims that had been filed only by 5 states. However, the court did something extraordinary in this case, which is that the states which were challenging the Biden administration asked the court to block the rule from taking effect in those states. But the court went much further and it vacated the entire rule. So as of now, it's as though the rule proposed in 2022 and finalized in 2024 doesn't exist at all anywhere in the country. Now, the ruling that was announced on Thursday of last week is considered final. And what that means is that the administration has the opportunity to appeal to the circuit court and possibly to the Supreme Court. However, we're also in a situation where the administration is about to change hands in a week and a half. So most people think that the Department of Education, which has lost resoundingly in this case, is unlikely to appeal.
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to ask was, of course, the incoming government. We've got Donald Trump imminently to be president. Is that the death knell of gender ideology, do you think, in America? Or do you think it will cling on through our institution, through your institutions?
It is most likely, in my view, the death knell of the rule that the Biden administration proposed in 2022 and finalized in 2024. I would love to think it is the death knell of all of so-called gender identity ideology in the United States. However, we have a lot more work to do. It's going to take many more years before we expel it from other institutions, before we expel it from corporations, from other aspects of academia. This ruling is an incredible victory for those of us who care about free speech and about the sex-based rights of women and girls. No doubt about it. It's a resounding victory, but it's limited to Title IX. And so there's a lot more work to do.
Well, I imagine you're going to keep on doing it, and congratulations on this victory, and keep up the good fight. Dansky, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.